Officer James Mercer slammed his coffee cup down harder than necessary. The hot liquid splashed onto his desk, staining the already messy pile of paperwork. Another career day assignment. Another waste of his time. "You're going to Riverdale Elementary," his sergeant had announced that morning. "Community outreach. Show the kids what police work is really about." What police work was really about? Mercer snorted. 15 years on the force, and he knew the truth. It was about dealing with liars, criminals, and people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. Career Day was just another performance where kids pretended to care while their parents snapped photos for social media. The gymnasium buzzed with energy as Mercer set up his display table. Kids ran between booths, collecting stickers and asking the same tired questions they asked every year. "Do you have a gun? Have you ever arrested anyone? Can I try on your handcuffs?" He stood rigidly behind his table, checking his watch every few minutes. 2 more hours. Then he could escape back to real police work. Officers shouldn't look so angry. Mercer looked down to see a skinny kid with glasses too big for his face. The boy wore faded jeans and a military green shirt that had seen better days. Maybe 10 years old, with messy brown hair and serious eyes. "Is that so?" Mercer raised an eyebrow. "And who are you, kid?" "Ethan Reeves, sir. I mean, my dad is Ethan Reeves. I'm Alex." The boy straightened his shoulders like he was standing at attention. "My dad says officers should make people feel safe, not scared." Great. Another kid with opinions about police work. Mercer forced a smile. "Your dad sounds like a smart guy." "He was in the Special Forces," Alex continued proudly. "Delta Force. He says respect is earned, not demanded." Mercer's fake smile froze. Here it came. The fantasy stories. Every year, some kid claimed their parent was a secret agent, a Navy SEAL, or some kind of Special Forces hero. It was always nonsense. Parents trying to seem important through their children's stories at school events. "Delta Force, huh?" Mercer's voice dripped with disbelief. "I'm sure your dad has lots of exciting stories to tell." "Not really, sir." Alex's voice dropped. "He doesn't talk about it much. Just sometimes when the nightmares come." Something about the boy's serious tone made Mercer pause. But he'd heard enough sob stories over the years. Time to set this kid straight before he embarrassed himself further. "Listen, Alex." Mercer leaned down, trying to look understanding. "I work with real heroes every day. Men and women who put their lives on the line without needing to make up stories about being secret soldiers. Your dad might be a good man, but—" "He has medals," Alex interrupted, his small hands clenching into fists. "Lots of them. And a Purple Heart. Do you know what that is?" Now other parents were looking. A few police officers from neighboring booths glanced over, sensing tension. Mercer felt heat creep up his neck. This was getting embarrassing. "I know what a Purple Heart is," he replied coldly. "I also know that people who really earn them don't usually send their kids to brag about them at school events." Alex's face turned red, but his eyes stayed locked on Mercer's. "He's coming today. He's just late because sometimes his wheelchair gets stuck on the ramp at our apartment." "Wheelchair?" Now, Mercer felt a tiny flicker of doubt. Real veterans did end up in wheelchairs. But no, he'd been fooled before by elaborate stories. This kid was probably just a good actor. "I'm sure he'll be very impressive when he arrives," Mercer said with barely disguised sarcasm. "Maybe he can tell us all about his secret missions." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Around them, the gymnasium noise seemed to fade. Parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. Another officer nearby looked like he wanted to intervene but wasn't sure how. Then, the gymnasium doors opened with a quiet whoosh. The crowd seemed to part automatically. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Mercer turned to see what had caused the sudden silence. A man in a motorized wheelchair entered the gymnasium. Despite the chair, there was nothing weak about his presence. His shoulders were broad, his chest powerful. Military bearing radiated from every inch of him, even sitting down. His face carried scars that looked like they'd been earned, not received by accident. The expensive charcoal suit he wore was perfectly tailored, suggesting success without showing off. "Dad!" Alex's face lit up. The boy ran across the gymnasium floor and was caught in a one-armed hug while his father expertly controlled the wheelchair with his other hand. As they approached Mercer's booth, the man's eyes locked onto his. They were the kind of eyes Mercer had seen only in officers who'd been through real combat. Intense, calculating, missing nothing. "Officer," the man said with a slight nod. His voice carried quiet authority that made Mercer want to stand straighter. "I understand you've been speaking with my son." Mercer felt his stomach drop. The casual confidence, the way other people instinctively made room for him, the quality of his clothing. This wasn't some parent playing make-believe. "Mr. Reeves," the school principal appeared at their side. "We're so honored you could join us today. I was just telling Officer Mercer about your foundation's generous donation to our STEM program." The name hit Mercer like a punch. Reeves. As in Reeves Security Solutions? The company that made body armor that had saved lives in his own department? The billionaire who'd started as Special Forces and built a company that revolutionized protective equipment for law enforcement and military. "My son tells me he's been learning about different careers today," Reeves continued, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps, Officer Mercer, you could tell him what inspired you to join the police force." The question sounded innocent, but Mercer sensed the weight behind it. This was a test, not just for his son, but for him. How would he respond after mocking this man's service history, after dismissing the boy's pride in his father? Around them, the gymnasium had returned to its normal activity level, but Mercer felt like everyone was still watching, waiting to see how the skeptical cop would handle meeting the very real decorated veteran he'd just dismissed as fantasy. His mouth opened, then closed. For 15 years, he'd prided himself on reading people quickly, on seeing through lies and fabrications. In less than 5 minutes, this man and his son had turned everything upside down. The worst part? Alex wasn't looking at him with anger or satisfaction at being proven right. The boy just looked disappointed, like he'd expected better from a police officer. Mercer had faced down armed criminals, dealt with dangerous situations, and survived 15 years of street policing. But standing there, facing a disabled veteran he'd insulted and a child he'd dismissed, he felt smaller than he had in years. "I joined to serve the community," he finally managed, his standard career day answer sounding empty even to his own ears. Reeves nodded slowly, as if evaluating more than just the words. Noble purpose. The best of us carry that sense of service, regardless of which uniform we wear. The statement held no accusation, but Mercer felt thoroughly corrected. The man had years of combat experience, had built a billion-dollar company, and had probably faced challenges Mercer couldn't imagine. Yet here he was, taking the high road with grace and patience. "Mr. Reeves," the principal intervened, sensing the tension. "I believe you're scheduled to speak to our 5th grade class about entrepreneurship after lunch. Perhaps Officer Mercer could join us. I'm sure the students would benefit from hearing about the relationship between private security firms and local law enforcement." Before Mercer could find an excuse, his radio crackled. A convenience store robbery 6 blocks away required immediate response. With mixed relief and shame, he excused himself, avoiding Alex's gaze as he hurried from the gymnasium. But as he drove toward the crime scene, Mercer couldn't shake the encounter from his mind. The way Reeves had handled the situation with class and dignity, the disappointment in Alex's eyes, the realization that for years he'd been dismissing stories that might actually be true. For the first time in a long time, Officer James Mercer wondered if he'd become exactly the kind of cynical, judgmental cop he'd never wanted to be. And worse, what other truths had he dismissed simply because he'd stopped believing in heroes altogether? The convenience store robbery was routine. A teenage kid with more fear than sense had tried to steal cigarettes and energy drinks. He practically surrendered when Mercer's patrol car pulled up. While booking the youth at the station, Mercer's mind kept wandering back to the gymnasium. Ethan Reeves. The name bothered him now that he recognized it. How could he have missed it? The company logos were on half the protective gear in his precinct. After his shift ended, instead of heading home like usual, Mercer found himself sitting in his car outside Riverdale Elementary. Most of the career day participants had left hours ago. The school was quiet, with just a few parents picking up forgotten items. He pulled out his phone and did something he should have done earlier. A quick search confirmed his worst suspicions. Ethan Reeves wasn't just some successful businessman. His military record was legendary within special operations. Multiple deployments to classified locations, commendations that made Mercer's own service awards look like participation trophies. The injury that put him in the wheelchair came from shielding fellow operators during an embassy rescue. 3 soldiers lived because Reeves took shrapnel to his spine. He'd been medically discharged at full honor, only to turn around and build a company that now protected thousands of first responders worldwide, including, Mercer discovered with a sinking feeling, a charity that provided college scholarships specifically for children of police officers killed in the line of duty. He closed his phone and leaned back in his seat. What kind of man had he become? 15 years ago, when he first put on the badge, he'd believed in heroes. Somewhere along the way, dealing with liars and criminals every day, he'd lost that faith. The school's front door opened. Mrs. Chen, the principal, emerged with her briefcase. She spotted Mercer's patrol car and walked over, looking concerned. "Officer Mercer, is everything all right?" "Yes, ma'am. He struggled to find the right words. "I wanted to apologize to Mr. Reeves and his son. I was out of line earlier." Mrs. Chen's expression softened. "They left about an hour ago. Mr. Reeves mentioned taking Alex to their company headquarters downtown." She paused, then reached into her purse. "He actually left this for you." She handed him a business card with an elegant silver logo. On the back, in handwritten ink, was a personal phone number. "He said you might want to see their facility sometime," she added. Alex was quite upset about the encounter, but Mr. Reeves seemed more understanding. He said everyone deserves a second chance to show their true character. Mercer thanked her and drove home in silence. That night, sleep came poorly. He kept seeing Alex's disappointed face, hearing the boy's quiet voice mentioning nightmares. How many veterans struggled with nightmares that their children knew about? The next morning, Mercer stared at the business card during his coffee break. Finally, he dialed the number. To his surprise, Reeves himself answered. "Mr. Reeves, this is Officer Mercer, from yesterday's career day." "Yes, officer. I've been expecting your call." The calm confidence in his voice made Mercer feel like a rookie again. "I owe you an apology, sir, and especially to your son. I let my cynicism get the better of me." "Apology accepted," Reeves replied simply. "Though I'd suggest the more important apology might be to yourself. Cynicism is a heavy burden to carry." They arranged to meet that afternoon at the Reeves Security Solutions headquarters. Mercer took personal time and changed into civilian clothes, driving downtown with growing nervousness. The RSS building was impressive without being flashy. Modern architecture blended with practical design, creating something that looked both secure and welcoming. Inside, security protocols were more sophisticated than those at his police headquarters, yet somehow less intimidating. Reeves's office on the top floor defied expectations. One wall displayed tactical equipment that was clearly functional, not decorative. Another held photographs. Reeves in full combat gear, faces of fellow operators respectfully blurred. Reeves receiving commendations from presidents. Reeves at ribbon-cutting ceremonies for veteran rehabilitation centers. Among them, one photo caught Mercer's attention. A much younger Reeves in dress uniform standing beside a woman in police blues. "My late wife, Catherine," Reeves said as he entered the office. "Baltimore Police Department. She was killed 12 years ago during a domestic violence call." The words hit Mercer like a physical blow. "I had no idea." "No reason you should," Reeves replied evenly. though it might explain why Alex takes such interest in police officers. He was only 3 when we lost her, but he's grown up with her memory. Suddenly, Alex's behavior made perfect sense. The boy wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was connecting with someone who represented his mother's profession, seeking understanding from people who wore the same uniform she had died wearing. "There's something else you should see," Reeves continued, wheeling to his desk. He opened a drawer and removed a small display case containing several medals. Catherine's posthumous Medal of Valor. She shielded a child during that domestic call. The child lived. She didn't. Mercer stood in silence, feeling the weight of his earlier judgment. This family had given more to public service than most people he knew. The cynicism that had built up over his career seemed petty now, defensive rather than protective. "I came to apologize," he managed finally, "but I think I need to understand something first. How do you do it? After losing your ability to walk, losing your wife? How do you not become bitter?" Reeves was quiet for a moment. "I had a choice after my injury. Become bitter about what I'd lost, or focus on what I could still protect." Catherine made the same choice every day when she put on her uniform, knowing the risks. He gestured to the photographs on the wall. Every person in these pictures chose service over safety. Some paid the ultimate price. The least I can do is honor that by continuing to serve in whatever way I can. And Alex is growing up understanding that real strength isn't physical, and real courage isn't the absence of fear. He's learning that heroes are ordinary people who choose to act when it matters. Reeves wheeled himself to the window overlooking the city. "Would you like to see what we're building here? Not for my sake or to impress you, but because I think you've forgotten something important about why you became a police officer." For the next hour, Mercer toured the facility. The innovations were remarkable. Lightweight body armor more effective than anything currently issued, communication systems that worked when regular networks failed, medical equipment designed specifically for field use by first responders. What struck him most was the staff. Many had visible disabilities: amputees, wheelchair users, people with prosthetics. Yet they moved with purpose and expertise, their limitations seemingly irrelevant to their capabilities. "Former military?" Mercer asked during a pause in the tour. "Some," Reeves confirmed. "Others are former police, firefighters, paramedics, people who understand crisis situations from personal experience. Their perspectives are invaluable for designing equipment that works in the real world." They stopped at a testing range where a woman with a prosthetic arm was demonstrating a new holster design. Among the observers, Mercer recognized his own department chief. "Chief Williams has been instrumental in helping us adapt our gear for patrol officers," Reeves explained. "He believes, as I do, that people who risk their lives deserve every advantage technology can provide." Before Mercer could respond, he noticed a familiar figure entering the range. Alex, changed from school clothes into a company polo shirt, was carrying a tablet and talking animatedly with one of the engineers. The boy stopped short when he saw Mercer, his expression immediately guarded. "Alex helps in our design department after school," Reeves explained. "He has a natural talent for finding problems others miss." Alex approached hesitantly, holding the tablet like a shield. "Officer Mercer, I came to see your dad's facility," Mercer said, "and to apologize properly for yesterday." The boy studied him for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. "Want to see the communication system I helped design? It's for emergency responders." As Alex began demonstrating the technology, his earlier wariness faded. The system was impressive, designed to function when regular communications failed, allowing officers to coordinate during disasters or infrastructure attacks. Watching Alex explain the technical details with growing confidence, Mercer realized something important. This wasn't about him proving he wasn't prejudiced, or Reeves proving he was legitimate. This was about a child who had lost his mother to the same calling that drove thousands of officers like Mercer every day. When the demonstration ended, Reeves suggested Alex return to his work while they finished the tour. The boy nodded, giving Mercer one last appraising look. He's brilliant, Mercer said sincerely. He is, but Catherine and I always believed that intelligence without character is dangerous. How you treat people when you think they can't benefit you reveals your true nature. The observation stung because it was accurate. I failed that test yesterday. Tests like that come up every day, Reeves replied. The question is what you do after you recognize the failure. Before Mercer could respond, alarms suddenly blared throughout the building. Red emergency lights flashed, and security personnel appeared with practiced efficiency. "Security breach in the Southwest Laboratory," announced a calm voice over the intercom. "All personnel implement lockdown protocols immediately." Reeves's demeanor changed instantly, businessman transforming into the combat commander he'd once been. "That's where Alex is working," he said grimly, already wheeling toward the nearest exit. "Someone's trying to steal our prototype designs, and my son is in the middle of it." Mercer's police training kicked in immediately. "I'm armed," he said, showing his off-duty weapon. "We should wait for your security team." "No," Reeves replied firmly, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to making life-or-death decisions. "Every second counts, and this isn't just about protecting prototypes. It's about protecting my son." As they raced through the building's corridors, Mercer realized that Ethan Reeves had lived this scenario before. Not in boardrooms or testing facilities, but in hostile territory where hesitation meant death and decisive action saved lives. The cynical cop, who had dismissed stories of heroism, was about to see firsthand what real heroism looked like. Officer Mercer's police training kicked in immediately. His off-duty weapon was already in his hand as they raced through the corridors. Reeves moved with surprising speed in his wheelchair, navigating the building's layout with the familiarity of someone who designed every security measure himself. "How many?" Mercer asked, checking his weapon while they moved. "Unknown," Reeves replied, pressing something on his wheelchair's armrest. A small screen appeared, showing security camera feeds. "But they're professionals, military training. Look." The screens showed 4 figures in tactical gear moving through the laboratory level. They moved with precision, covering angles and communicating in military hand signals. These weren't common criminals. "Industrial espionage," Reeves said grimly. "Our newest prototypes have significant military applications. Several foreign governments would pay millions for them." "Where's Alex?" Mercer's heart raced, thinking of the boy in the middle of this. Reeves quickly cycled through camera views, finally stopping on an image of a storage area. There, behind a row of equipment cases, Alex crouched in a defensive position, holding something against his chest. "He knows the emergency protocols," Reeves said with grim pride. "He's secured himself and—" "Is that the neural processor?" "The what?" "Prototype component for our new battlefield communication system. Alex must have grabbed it when the alarm sounded." Reeves showed Mercer another screen. "One intruder is systematically searching that room. He's getting closer to Alex's position." The elevator indicators showed they were approaching the laboratory level. Distant gunfire echoed from below, suggesting Reeves's security team was engaging the other intruders. "My security team has protocols for this," Reeves explained as they exited the elevator. "They'll create a perimeter and try to contain the threat. That gives us a window to reach Alex." "We should wait for backup," Mercer insisted. "I've called for SWAT support." "SWAT is 15 minutes out," Reeves replied. "Alex doesn't have 15 minutes." They moved through the darkened corridors, emergency lighting casting long shadows. Reeves led the way, his wheelchair silent on the polished floor. For a moment, Mercer forgot the man was disabled. His tactical awareness was that sharp. Through a small window, they saw the storage room. The intruder was moving methodically through the space, weapon raised, searching each potential hiding spot. Alex remained frozen behind the equipment cases, barely breathing. "2 entry points," Reeves whispered. "I'll take the main door. Draw his attention. You go through the maintenance door on the left. Get behind him." "You're using yourself as bait," Mercer realized. I'm using whatever tactical advantage I have, Reeves corrected. That intruder expects someone in a wheelchair to be helpless. His mistake. Before Mercer could argue, Reeves was moving into position. He waited until Mercer reached the maintenance door, then entered the storage room openly. Federal Agent Reeves, he called out, identifying himself with his voice calm and authoritative. Lower your weapon and step away from the civilian. The intruder spun toward the voice, weapon trained on Reeves. In that moment of distraction, Mercer slipped through the maintenance door behind him. Where I can see your hands, the intruder demanded, his accent suggesting Eastern European origins. My hands are right here, Reeves replied, raising them. But you should know, I'm not alone. The intruder hesitated, processing this information too late. Mercer pressed his weapon against the man's back. Police, drop your weapon now. For a split second, the intruder considered his options. Then his shoulder tensed. Mercer recognized the movement of someone about to spin and fire. Without hesitation, he pulled the trigger. The intruder dropped, unconscious from the impact. His weapon clattered across the floor. Alex emerged from his hiding place, shaky but unharmed. Dad, he called out, running to Reeves. You okay, son? Reeves caught Alex in a one-armed embrace while keeping his own weapon ready. I got the processor, Alex said, showing the small component he'd protected. Just like you taught me, secure critical assets during emergencies. Good thinking. Reeves' pride was evident despite the ongoing crisis. Now, we need to… The lights throughout the facility suddenly died. Emergency power failed a moment later, plunging them into complete darkness. An explosion rumbled from another part of the building. EMP device, Reeves said in the darkness. They're destroying what they can't steal. In the confusion, the sound of running footsteps approached from multiple directions. Mercer secured the unconscious intruder with zip ties from his belt, then positioned himself defensively. Emergency lighting flickered back on, revealing 3 more intruders at the storage room entrance, weapons raised. They moved like a coordinated team, covering each other professionally. Drop your weapons, the lead intruder ordered in accented English. The boy comes with us. Never going to happen, Mercer responded, stepping between the intruders and Alex. You're outnumbered, the leader continued. 3-2, and one of you can't even stand. Reeves's expression hardened at the casual cruelty. You know, he said conversationally. People make that assumption. Let me show you why it's dangerous. He pressed something on his wheelchair's control panel. Instantly, a high-pitched whine filled the room, followed by a blinding flash. Unlike the EMP, this was a localized defensive measure, a flashbang system built into his chair. Both Mercer and Alex had closed their eyes the moment Reeves reached for the control. They'd been expecting it. The intruders, caught off guard, stumbled back, temporarily blinded and disoriented. Reeves moved with practiced precision, his wheelchair becoming a weapon as he rammed the nearest intruder, knocking him off balance. Mercer used the confusion to tackle another, his police training guiding his movements. The third intruder, recovering faster than his companions, raised his weapon toward Alex. Without thinking, Mercer threw himself between them, feeling the impact of bullets against his body armor. He returned fire, catching the intruder in the shoulder. Within moments, all 3 were down. 2 unconscious, 1 wounded, but not critically. Mercer and Reeves secured them quickly, Alex helping with zip ties despite his shaking hands. You okay? Reeves asked, noticing Mercer checking his chest where the bullets had hit. Body armor saved me, Mercer confirmed, wincing at the bruising. Your technology, actually, works as advertised. Before they could celebrate, another voice echoed from the doorway. Nobody move! A 5th intruder stood there, this one without tactical gear but carrying a detonator in his hand. I've got explosives placed throughout this floor. Everyone stays calm or we all go together. The standoff was interrupted by the sound of helicopters outside. Through the windows, they could see police and federal vehicles surrounding the building. It's over, Mercer said to the newcomer. Your team is down. Authorities are here. Let's end this peacefully. The man's eyes darted between them, calculating his odds. His finger hovered over the detonator button. Then Alex did something unexpected. He stepped forward, still holding the processor chip. "Sir," the boy said in a calm voice. "This is what you came for, right? The neural processor? It's worth millions. My dad's research, years of work." "Alex, no," Reeves started to say. "You don't need to hurt anyone," Alex continued, extending the chip toward the man. "Take it and go. Just don't hurt the people here. Please." The intruder stared at the child, clearly not expecting this turn. His hand on the detonator wavered. In that moment of hesitation, Reeves made his move. Despite the wheelchair, he lunged forward with the upper body strength of a trained operator, knocking the detonator from the man's hand. Mercer was instantly in motion, tackling the last intruder to the ground. When SWAT finally breached the building minutes later, they found the storage room secure. 5 intruders neutralized, critical technology protected, and 3 unlikely allies catching their breath. Alex sat next to his father's wheelchair, still clutching the processor chip. Mercer knelt nearby, checking the secured prisoners while emergency responders attended to minor injuries. "You took a big risk stepping forward like that," Mercer told Alex gently. "Mom always said police officers were brave because they protected others," Alex replied. "Dad taught me that sometimes being brave means trusting that others will protect you too." Looking at Reeves, Mercer saw something he'd missed before. This wasn't just a successful businessman or even a decorated veteran. This was a man who dedicated his life to protecting others and who was raising his son to understand that same principle. "I owe you both an apology," Mercer said quietly. "Not just for yesterday, but for forgetting why I became a police officer in the first place." Reeves extended his hand. "Some lessons take time to learn. The important thing is that you learned it when it mattered." As they waited for the all-clear from security teams, Mercer realized something profound had shifted. The cynicism that had built up over 15 years of policing hadn't disappeared, but it no longer dominated his perspective. Sometimes heroes were exactly what they claimed to be, and sometimes the most important lessons came from the people you least expected to teach them. 3 hours later, Officer Mercer sat in a police interview room, wrapping up his statement about the security breach. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving him exhausted but clear-headed. Through the one-way mirror, he could see Alex in another room, calmly explaining his role in protecting the processor chip while his father sat beside him. Chief Williams entered the room, closing the door behind him. "Hell of a thing, Mercer. Federal agents are calling it one of the biggest industrial espionage attempts they've seen." "Yes, sir. Mr. Reeves's security system worked exactly as designed. And, from what I hear, you and Reeves made a pretty good team." The chief studied him carefully. "You know, when I got the call about an off-duty officer involved in a tactical situation at RSS headquarters, I wasn't expecting your name." Mercer nodded, understanding the unspoken question. "I was there to apologize, sir, for something that happened at Career Day this morning." "Want to explain?" "I misjudged someone, made assumptions based on cynicism rather than facts." He met his chief's eyes directly. "It won't happen again?" Chief Williams sat down across from him. "You know, Reeves pulled me aside earlier, said you showed exemplary judgment today, both in the tactical situation and in recognizing your earlier mistake." "The man's more generous than I deserve, Chief." "Maybe. But he also mentioned something else. His foundation wants to sponsor a new community policing program, specifically requested you to head it up." The chief leaned back. "Apparently, he believes officers who can recognize their own flaws and work to correct them make the best community leaders." Mercer sat in stunned silence. A few hours ago, he'd insulted this man's family. Now Reeves was offering him a career opportunity? "I don't know what to say, sir." "Say you'll think about it. The program starts next month, if you're interested." Later that evening, Mercer found himself driving back to Riverdale Elementary. The school was dark except for a few lights in the kindergarten wing where the after-school program was ending. He spotted Alex waiting by the main entrance, backpack on his shoulder, looking around anxiously. Mercer parked and approached him. "Hey Alex, everything okay?" "Dad's meeting ran late," Alex explained. "The FBI wanted to talk more about security protocols. He texted that he's on his way, but mind if I wait with you? I wanted to talk to you both anyway." They sat on a bench near the school entrance. The evening air was cool and crickets chirped from the nearby trees. Both sat quietly for a moment, processing the day's events. "I'm sorry," Mercer said finally, "for what I said this morning about your dad not being a real hero." Alex looked down at his shoes. "People say that a lot. They see the wheelchair and think he can't do things, even some adults at school. Your dad did more real hero work in 1 hour today than most people do in a lifetime." "I know, but sometimes I get tired of explaining it." Alex glanced up at him. "Mom used to say that real heroes don't need explanations. They just do what's right." Mercer felt the weight of the boy's words. "Your mom sounds like she was pretty wise." "She was. Dad says I have her sense of justice." Alex smiled slightly. "And her stubborn streak." That stubborn streak probably saved lives today. They heard the distinctive hum of an electric motor, and Reeves appeared around the corner, navigating his wheelchair up the path to the school entrance. His suit jacket was draped over his lap, and his shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing muscular forearms marked with old scars. "Sorry I'm late," Reeves said as he approached. "The federal debriefing took longer than expected." He looked between them. "I hope you two have had a chance to talk." "Actually," Mercer said, "I wanted to thank you both, not just for today, but for reminding me why I became a police officer." Reeves raised an eyebrow. "Oh? 15 years on the job, and I'd forgotten how to see people for who they really are. Started assuming the worst about everyone." He looked directly at Alex. "Including you and your dad this morning." "People make mistakes," Alex said simply. "Dad always says the measure of a person is what they do after the mistake." "Smart kid," Mercer agreed. "Your chief mentioned a community policing program you're starting. I'd like to be part of it, if the offer still stands." Reeves nodded slowly. "The offer stands. Though I should warn you, Alex here has some ideas about police-civilian relationships that might surprise you." "Like what?" Alex perked up. "Like how officers should visit schools more often, not just for career day, and how police departments should have better communication systems. The prototype we were testing today could help officers stay connected during disasters. And," Reeves added with a slight smile, "he thinks police cars should carry the new first aid kits we're developing. They're lightweight but comprehensive, designed specifically for law enforcement needs." Mercer looked at this father and son, seeing them clearly for the first time. Not a disabled veteran and a kid trying to make his dad seem important, but two people genuinely committed to making their community safer. "I think we're going to work well together," he said. 6 weeks later, Officer James Mercer stood in the same Riverdale Elementary Gymnasium where his journey had begun. This time, he wore his dress uniform, standing beside a podium where the school principal was speaking. The gymnasium was packed with students, parents, and several police officers and veterans he didn't recognize. "Today," Principal Chen announced, "we're launching a special program to bring first responders and veterans into our classrooms regularly, not just for Career Day. Thanks to a generous grant from the Reeves Foundation, every student will have the opportunity to learn about public service from people who have dedicated their lives to protecting others." Reeves sat in his wheelchair beside the podium, Alex standing proudly next to him. Both had played crucial roles in developing the program over the past month and a half. "And now," the principal continued, "Mr. Reeves has a special presentation to make." Reeves wheeled to the microphone. 6 weeks ago, in this very gymnasium, my son Alex proudly shared stories about his father's military service. One officer dismissed those stories as fantasy. He gestured to Mercer. Today, that same officer stands here as the director of our new community policing program. The audience murmured with interest as Reeves continued. Officer James Mercer demonstrated something rare that day: the courage to admit when he was wrong and the determination to make things right. In the special operations community, we have a saying: integrity is what you do when no one is watching. Character is what you do when everyone is. Alex stepped forward, carrying a small wooden box. He opened it to reveal a gleaming medal on a blue ribbon. This, Reeves explained, is a Medal of Valor, awarded posthumously to my late wife, Officer Catherine Reeves, for giving her life to protect a child during a domestic violence call. With the permission of the Baltimore Police Department, I've had a replicas commissioned. Mercer stepped forward, genuinely moved. Mr. Reeves, I can't... Officer Mercer, Reeves interrupted gently. This medal represents something more than bravery in a single moment. It represents the choice to serve others, even when it's difficult, even when you make mistakes, even when you forget why you started. He took the medal from Alex and held it out. You reminded me that heroes come in many forms, including those who have the strength to change. As Reeves placed the medal around Mercer's neck, the gymnasium erupted in applause. But what mattered most to Mercer wasn't the recognition or the applause. It was seeing Alex's genuine smile, knowing he had earned the respect of a boy he had initially dismissed. After the ceremony, as families mingled and students examined the various police equipment on display, Alex approached Mercer. "So, are you going to tell me about being a police officer?" he asked. "The real stuff, not just the career day speech?" Mercer knelt to meet him at eye level. "I'd be honored, Alex. And maybe you could tell me more about those innovations you're working on. Your dad says the new communication systems could revolutionize how officers work in the field." "Deal," Alex said, extending his hand for a shake. As they shook hands, Mercer noticed Reeves watching them with quiet satisfaction. In that moment, he realized that his journey over the past 6 weeks had taught him more than just humility. It had reminded him that prejudice often blinds us to the very people who have the most to teach us. Later, as the event wound down, Mercer helped Reeves pack up his company's display items. They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Reeves spoke. "You know, Officer Mercer, there's something I didn't mention earlier. That Medal of Valor you're wearing? Catherine received it for protecting a child named David. He was 8 years old, caught in the crossfire of his parents' violent argument. What happened to him? He's 20 now, studying criminal justice at university, planning to become a police officer." Reeves looked at Mercer meaningfully. "Sometimes the people we protect end up protecting others. It's a cycle of service that continues beyond any single moment of heroism." As they finished packing, Alex rejoined them, chattering excitedly about the positive response to the first community policing presentation. Watching the boys' enthusiasm, Mercer understood that his own transformation was just beginning. The skeptical cop who had mocked a child's pride in his father was gone. In his place stood someone who had rediscovered the nobility in service, the power of second chances, and the truth that heroes often come from unexpected places. And sometimes, the most important lessons come not from our successes, but from those moments when we recognize our failures and choose to do better. Walking out of the gymnasium beside Reeves and Alex, Mercer felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. The cynicism that had weighed him down was still there. It would probably always be part of his job, but it no longer controlled him. As they reached the parking lot, Alex turned to him with a question. "Officer Mercer, next week we're testing the new emergency response kits at the station. Want to help?" "Wouldn't miss it," Mercer replied. "Though I should warn you, I might ask a lot of questions." Alex grinned, the same proud smile he'd worn when talking about his father 6 weeks ago. "Questions are how you learn. Mom always said the smartest people never stop being curious." Watching the boy run ahead to help his father load the wheelchair into their specially equipped vehicle, Mercer realized that Catherine Reeves's legacy lived on in ways that went far beyond medals and ceremonies. It lived in the daily choice to serve, protect, and believe in the possibility that people can change. And in that choice, there was always room for heroes.